step up to the plate and take advantage of those services. You're already paying for them in most cases with the tuition fees, so use them. I tell my first year seminar class each semester, it's not like every time you walk into our Academic Success Center you have to write a check. You're getting tutoring that you're already paying for via tuition and fees. So to use those services. So I implore the students in the room, as you make your way to college, to take advantage of those services. And sometimes you have to be a little proactive too. Delaware sounds like a great place that they're willing to go that far for students. Not all schools have those programs in place. And if you end up going to a school that doesn't maybe have something like that in place, go out and take advantage of those opportunities. Sometimes you got to seek them out. They're not hard to find on campus. And most schools are going to have a first-year seminar, a freshman seminar class. I know I take my students on a tour, not of the campus, of a tour of all the support centers on campus. So they can't come at the end of the semester and say to me, when I ask them, well, how are you doing in your classes? Oh, I really should have got tutoring. And they can't say, well, I didn't know where to go for tutoring. I said, I brought you right there. I just saw a student walk through my office the other day. And I said to him, oh, how'd your first semester? I know, well, I did good. I failed one class. And I looked and I said, did you go get the help I told you to get midway through the semester? No, I didn't. And, we as the college administrators can only do so much sometimes. So I implore the students to also take responsibility towards how you do in college.
I just want to add for Iona, I know that we've been talking a lot about academic support, but as far as social support, we do have an involvement fair the first week of classes, okay, so that 80 plus clubs and organizations that I mentioned earlier, they all have a table in our La Penta Student Union parking lot. So it's a huge crowd of students just throwing out information about the different clubs and organizations, and it's very hard for our students to just be involved in one thing or nothing at all. So I think that, yes, we have the academic support, the Rudin Center that I was talking about earlier, but in regards to feeling comfortable with your peers and your social group, we have our Greek life that comes together. We have the athletics teams, intramurals, and walk-on sports, but also the involvement fair. So we have the 80 clubs and organizations. It's radio, the radio club, our Ionian newspaper. Every major has a club associated with it as well. So if you are focusing on advertising, you want to join the advertising group. So in regards to that social support as well, at least for campus at Iona, because we are a tight-knit community, we are highly involved, and it's family-like. Nobody is ever left behind.
I have a question. When a student takes the SAT for the first time, my son's going to be taking it for the first time this spring. You can list schools that you want the scores to be sent to. This is obviously prior to you sending an application. Is it best to send it to all the schools that you're interested in, or just a few? I don't know how it would work.
I think that's going to depend upon the schools where they're interested. So for example, at Marist, we do super score, your test score, so we'll look at the highest composite if you've taken that multiple times. But also being test optional, let's say you've already set your scores, but once you get your, all of your scores back, you don't feel comfortable sending that information in. All you have to do is tell us that you don't want your scores considered, and although you've already sent that information to us, we won't look at it and we won't be able to review that. So I think it's going to be important to look at all the schools you're considering and see what their policy would be before adding them to that list to receive your scores.
Seton Hall also super scores the SATs, and we would just recommend, you can always add schools later on. I think it's just a smaller fee that you have to pay to send your scores later.
I just have a question. You're going to hate me for going back to this. And speaking frankly, you're here at a Tuesday's Children event, and 3 times I heard you talk about adversity in your college essay. The common bond for the youngsters here is one piece of adversity. Obviously, if there's something else you've overcome in your life, that's great. I have friends who have older students, that the topic of September 11th in their college essay might not be looked upon. It's getting old, it's getting stale. And I just would really like your take on that, because when you say adversity to this group, and I hope I'm not speaking out of, you know, is that a recommendation for these young people? I mean, you know, there are amazing things that have come out of it. These are truly exceptional children that walk through life with grace and nobility. But I'd really just like your take, since you're at it, Tuesday's Children event, on what you think about that.
First, I want to say that and I'm sure I can speak for everyone here sitting next to me, that we are very sorry for the losses that you had to take on. As a New Yorker, as someone who had, you know, family affected by it too, I don't ever think that it will ever go out of style, quote unquote, for lack of a better term. I feel like it was a huge impact on our entire community, so please feel free to write about it to Iona, because we are on the mission to move the world. So anything that is a negative effect to our community, we only want to make it better. Iona also is affiliated with the New York State World Trade Center Memorial Scholarship, so that will just be the, you know, besides letting us know about it on your application, if you are writing about it as well, then me seeing that would be like, okay, well, now this student is a part of that group of students that could be eligible for this type of scholarship. I should mention that that scholarship does not include your FAFSA aid that could come in and your merit-based scholarship as well. So it can only benefit you in regards to maybe your pocket, which is a huge thing. We're a private Catholic school. I'm not sure if I mentioned that earlier. So any type of financial aid that could help you, especially in that 9/11 tragedy, I don't think that you should push it down in any way. It was one of the biggest things that's ever happened to you thus far. So another thing that we at Iona like to support is talking about your feelings. So if that really helps you, then no, at Iona, please don't suppress anything. Only bring it forward and help us see how we can move the world through your eyes.
Your colleague, I think, sums it up in the first part in terms of our gratitude to all the sacrifice that your fellows, you know, there are unfortunate circumstances which we all suffer. Just at the hospital, when my wife went in for a simple checkup and to realize that she had to go for 48 hours. Not even imagine the fact of one or two of being bruised in case your loved ones one morning and they were not there to return. I have a 5-year-old son, so my thing for the past 48 hours to explain to him why mommy is in there, so I cannot just fathom what all of you can.
And I didn't want to bring you guys down, I really just wanted to.
It's fine.
I feel like I brought everybody down.
No.
It's really, you know, there's a great majority of the youngsters that really don't even want anybody to know. They want to earn things on their own. So that's a huge part of it as well. But I wanted to clarify for the youngsters, when you hear that word, many of their minds just immediately go to that.
And I have to
So,
say, it is
you know,
a reality that's going to be with us for a very long time, whether we like it or not.
Right, it's our history, that's
So
what it
it's
is.
part of our history, whether something going to shove it down the road or keep it to another section of the room. It's fine with them, but for us personally, McCall, we welcome that. And just recently, I read an essay about Pearl Harbor. So, and when I read it and what the young person talked about was about his grandfather, how that shaped the whole family's life in terms of them becoming a military family. So, once again, when you say something is old and something is new, it all depends upon the individual. Plus, for us in McCall, you have a committee that's going to read it. I may take it differently from someone else, or someone else may take it entirely differently from another party. But that doesn't mean that it isn't relevant. No, it is very, very, very relevant because of the reality that people have been suffering or struggling for a very, very long time. And we welcome it.
We made positive changes as well.
Absolutely, because with us now, you're given 3 choices in terms of essays to select from. You have to write 2. And one of those choices can be an adversity that you have overcome. That could be one of those adversities you can write about. And we welcome it. And if anyone here is interested to apply to a very selective college that is still on the tough side, you know, with good academic programs that will truly reward you, look into Macaulay. We're doing lots of big things. We're changing the world one student at a time. So if you want to write about that, I'll be more than happy to read it, you know. Just want to have at it.
I think maybe you could also touch upon if a student doesn't want to write about the common bond that they share in the room, but some university that they have had to come over. How, in any regard, how is the essay, how does it need to look? Is it just, you know, I hurt myself, I tore my ACL, and I couldn't play sports the rest of my high school career? How does the whole shape of the essay, which I think regardless of what they choose to write about, is kind of what you're looking for? So, I mean, the beginning, middle, and the end, in a way, like how should it end? Is it just coming over that adversity? Is it finding the way to move forward in life? Or what is kind of the ending look like, I guess, is a good way to let everyone know.
I think one of the important things to see is, you know, okay, you've gone through this situation and, you know, it's obviously impacted you in some way, but I think it's important to bring it full circle to really see, you know, how it's impacted you and what steps you've taken to overcome that, and now kind of where you are in that process. So I think it's important to really bring it all full circle so that way, you know, we can take that into consideration. And, you know, if that means that it's something that you're still working on daily, then, you know, then don't be afraid to, you know, put that information there. You don't have to hide it just because you haven't, you know, you haven't closed that chapter of your life. It could be something that you're still working through. But I think that even goes to, you know, speaking to what you're able to, you know, to go through. And I think, you know, college is very much a huge stepping stone that you'll have to, you know, kind of go through as well. So I think it definitely will help to bring it full circle.
When we review the applications and we look at the non-cognitive characteristics, being overcoming adversity being one of the 8 different characteristics that we're looking at, one of the things that as we look to end the essay is extending whatever the characteristic that, or the multiple characteristics or the single characteristic that you're looking to show us, extending it to what it means for you in your next chapter of your life, which when you're applying to college, it's the college campus, and you as a college student. And most students, from my perspective, don't. They leave it at where they're at. And that's fine, and it doesn't deter from an admissions decision for us. But the challenge and the growth opportunity that this process affords us all on our side as we continuously learn and utilize research to identify students that will be a great fit for our communities. And as you go through this process as a family, thinking about what this college experience looks like, something that you don't know yet. And then seeing, well, this is a skill, or this is an experience, or this is a talent that I have, or an interest area. What does that look like for me next year? If you can think about that and portray that in your essay, that's something that for us, I don't see a lot. They kind of end it where they are right now. So that's how I would add.
I want to add something. At Macaulay, for us, you only have 500 words in your essay. So each essay is 500 words, and to be quite frank with you, you do not have a lot of room to create a filibuster. You know, you don't have a lot of room to give various scenarios. So what I've shared with you recently, I read, in the process of reading that, when I read 3 essays that just blew my mind. One was a gentleman who is actually an up-and-coming baseball star in the Queens, actually, but as a result of him playing baseball, he got hurt. So he continuously kept playing, till the point that he couldn't play anymore, and he developed a spinal cord injury. But this essay was so well written, was so crafted, was so beautifully, I felt as if this person was right there talking to me. And another essay was a young lady who was part of the Cool Kids, but as a result of being in a fire, her whole face got disfigured. So now she went from being from the in crowd to the out crowd. So now she's teaching her friends in terms of how to treat people who are not part of any crowd. So you have, I mean, for me, it's a privilege to read all these essays and I get to advocate for these individuals. But the bottom line, all these essays, what they have in common is that they knew the objective which they were supposed to execute, and they executed effectively. Tons of essays which I've read within the past few weeks, some of the students do not know the objectives. We just keep going on and on and on and on and on. So my advice to all of you, instead of have like a roadmap, just go to chronological order. Set it up in a way that a person can see and can understand it. And above all is that just remember one thing, the essay is being asked of you to write a question, sort of indirectly, why should we admit you? So all this individual sort of kind of puts it within the essay, they included it, that they want to become a doctor. One wanted to become a doctor, the gentleman who played baseball, he wants to become a spinal cord specialist. But he stated it without not saying this is the reason why you should admit me. He sort of kind of closed it in as a result of my obstacles which I'm responsibility to overcome. I have decided to become a spinal cord specialist. And when you look at his essay, he's applying to the medical program. And the other young lady who got hurt in the fight, she wants to become some sort of, I think, specialist in terms of helping victims with slash therapy. And she sort of talked about it also, and she selected a program that's going to give that outlet, because in our program you can create your own career path. So all these essays that I just did, which is plenty about, right? The main bottom line fact that they hit the nail on the head with 500 words, and the ones that often do not meet the objective, the ones that are still sort of all over the place, and we're not able to answer the question, which is mostly that's where they drop the ball. So to close, that chronological order, 3 parts: your introduction, your body, and your clothing. Get straight to the point. Straight to the point.
Are there any other questions that I can think about?
Should the letters of recommendation from teachers pertain to like your major, like for the subjects?
At Iona, we actually do not require recommendations any longer, unless you are asked for an interview, then we would like to see one. And you can ask your teacher to talk about how well you would do in a certain program, but more so about you personally. You know, how can you bring a better life to Iona, and how Iona can better your life instead.
At Delaware, the most important recommendation letter is your school counselor's recommendation letter. So that's why I will reiterate the fact that I know in some schools, it's a lot easier to know your school counselor, and in others, there may be a little bit more challenges to that. But for us, that is one that we're able to see not only the academic, but the social, extracurricular, and any other circumstances that we need to be aware of. The teacher's recommendations, they do help us. Those that I don't receive a lot of that do help is that when we look at your transcript and we see a trend in a certain discipline that brings up a red flag, we would love for the teacher that maybe you have struggled the most with to kind of share with us. And then that really helps us get those non-cognitive variables. Did you seek extra help? Did you create study groups? Were you receptive to getting support? Typically, and I know I did this as a student as well, I chose the teacher that I got the A in, and in my foreign language classes, I was not that good in those. And that definitely was something now, knowing what I know now, would help us just bring more context to it, and then you being proactive in explaining that. So yes, choose the teachers and the majors that you're interested in, but also those that if you look at your own transcript, what would a committee say?
Make sure you're giving your teachers and guidance counselors enough heads up for when the letters of recommendation need to be done by. That's another important thing. Don't go to your teacher the night before. You're going to need this letter of recommendation sent in for whether it's for a scholarship or for admission, and hand them something. It also might be pertinent to also, when you go to your guidance counselor or a teacher or a coach, to give them a resume of other things that maybe they're not aware that you've already been involved with as well. Because they may only know you as a student, but they may not know that you're also involved in all these great things as well. But definitely give people a heads up all the time. My student tour guides that I oversee in the admissions office, I tell them that, you got to give me at least 2 weeks ahead of time. So it gives me the most time to sit down, craft a great letter of recommendation, go over a bunch of different things, edit it, rewrite it, so over that 2-week period I can hand them something really great instead of slapping something together last minute for them as well.
From a guidance perspective, we always try to recommend the juniors to have solidified 2 teachers by the end of their junior year and give them a heads up. All the senior year teachers are going to be busy writing letters for hundreds of kids. So if you can be prepared with your information and provide it to your teacher, they can write your letter over the summer going into senior year. We also recommend asking one person from math and science side and one person from English and history side. Usually it's a teacher you have a close relationship with, or someone you may have had for more than 1 year, or it could be a teacher you have currently junior year. But teachers do need time to write those letters. That way they have them done by your senior year. And then your guidance counselor will also be writing you a letter of recommendation, which will be done by the time you apply. So if you're thinking of doing early action, which is going to be coming up pretty soon, those applications could be due as early as December 1st or December 15th of senior year. So you have to kind of plan accordingly depending on when your application deadlines are due. Also, there is early decision, which is binding. It's a binding agreement with the school that you plan to apply to, but that's also going to be early on in the fall. And then regular decision can range anywhere between December all the way through March. So it just gives you an idea of when to talk to your teachers and your guidance counselors to have your letters back.
I just want to add something. The gentleman who asked that question, thank you for raising that question.
Thank you.
The reason why I thank you specifically because most applicants do not realize how heavy in terms of those recommendations that the language factor. Actually, a few numbers of students as a result of their recognition letters were able to get admitted. And also, I just want to say this. Majority of your recommenders have other people whom they're writing recognition letters for as well. I've seen tons of letters where they start as a he and at the end is a she. Okay? I've seen tons of letters where you kind of see the similarity, the person did not put time into it. We call that flat letter of recognition. A flat letter recognition often will do you a great injustice. It is just as is the same equivalent as not having a letter of recognition, period. And the professionals who are reading that, sometimes there's almost sort of a turnoff because this person has the opportunity to help you to get into something, whether A, you ask them the last minute or the teachers just not have time, or sometimes they're not a good writer in terms of expressing their thoughts chronologically in terms of how they see you. My recognition, what I've often said to students when I'm giving talks or wherever I may be, is that one, get people that know you very well. Get someone who has seen you through some sort of adversity that have worked with you. And very often, one thing I recommend for saying, those teachers that whom often you do not like, that they often push you or they will anchor you to certain core values. Those people would write you a great recognition letter. Secondly, we've asked for 2 letters of recognitions. If you were to submit a 3rd letter of recommendation, let it come from someone else, such as your advisor in the robotics club, or if you were volunteering in the soup kitchen, let that manager write your letter of recognition that will see you in a light that is non-academic. What happens is that most students go for someone that has a name. We have a few high-profile cases that come to our office, and sometimes you see the name is there, such and such, but then the letter is flat. In some avenue, yes, it can help you. In some cases, it will do you a good injustice. Go to those individuals that know you very well. And those 3 individuals whom I spoke of later, previously, in terms of their essays, one thing that they all have in common, the people who they selected to write their letters of recognition knew them very well. So from their records, their academic components, their struggles, their challenges, they were able to put all of that in all 2 of the letters, and you can see that this person is not just working hard, but this is a true human being who's going places. And selective schools like ours, we look for that, and we connect the dots. Once we connect the dots, we say, okay, fine, all these people are saying this, and this student test is good, academic record is good, wow, let's put them on this file. that's what you want, then just to go someone to just write you a few lines and just throw it, make a few errors, it's not worth it. So get some of that motion.
Thank
No problem.
I know you're looking for a well-rounded student. Does that include athletes? I mean, what if you have a student who is not involved in any sports? Does that go against them?
Well, at Marist, we're not looking for one particular involvement over the other. It's important for us to see more quantity than, more quality than to see quantity. We look for, key things within the application. So for example, loading up on involvement, over the summer of your junior year to your senior year, and not really having much involvement before that. We look to see students dedicating a specific amount of time within, areas where they're interested in. So we're not looking for, when you submit the Common App sheet and you can say 1 hour for this activity, 1 hour for that activity. We're looking for, students that are dedicating their time to, to these, whatever involvement that is, whether it's music, whether it's performance, whether it's, academic-based clubs or organizations outside of the classroom, whether it's service, whether they have employment. So those are things that we're looking for. We're also looking for leaders as well. So, if you're coming in and starting an organization and then building that from the ground up, those are things that we're looking at. I think students really discount themselves when they submit their resumes because they just list their involvement as opposed to really being detailed in terms of the awards that they've received. Maybe you worked your way from a general member up to president of that club, and just listing out, that name isn't really giving you the credit that you deserve. So I think it's important to be detailed with your involvement. I think it's important to be involved throughout your high school career, and I think it's important to really give yourself the credit that you deserve because they're dedicating their time to that involvement.
So we're almost out of time, but I wanted just the admissions reps to go down the line and maybe give their one sentence, their best sentence of advice that they can give to the students and the parents in the room, as well as let everyone know if they are a Common App school. And then once everyone goes down, we'll kind of have some informal networking, so if you guys want to stand up, get water, stretch your legs, and you guys can talk to them a little bit before they head out if you have a question or if you want to get their contact information. So Katie, if we could start with you. One sentence and best advice.
Okay. Well, Seton Hall is a Common App school, and we also have our own application. We don't have one preference over the other, what you apply for. And we do offer fee waivers for both if you're interested. My one piece of advice, I would say, other than being a well-rounded student, is to just be yourself. Some of the best essays I've read the student might just be an average student in the class, but they're themselves in their essays, and you can kind of, it's like having a conversation with them when you're reading their essay. One of the best essays I wrote, that I read, was about a student, and he wrote it from a CEO perspective because he was really interested in our school business, and his SATs were average, his GPA was average, but that kind of really stood out to me that was what he was interested in.
Marist is a Common App school as well. We do have our own institutional app and our Common App, and we do not have a preference in terms of what application you choose. And my best piece of advice would be to sit down and self-reflect. And I think it's important to not only look at the schools that have the bigger names, but more so important to look at a school where you can see yourself growing personally, academically, and socially. I think it's very important for you to find a place where you're comfortable and to find a place where you can be around like-minded people. So, don't look at places where your friends are looking, your parents, they will give you great advice, but, you want to make sure that you look at places where you can see yourself grow and where you can see yourself succeed. So you want to make sure that you learn a little bit more about yourself in the process so that way you're able to find those places where you'll fit the best.
So John Jay, like I said earlier, is on the CUNY application. We're not on the Common application. My best piece of advice is just ask a lot of questions. If this is your first time going through the college process, it can be really daunting. I was lucky enough to have two brothers to go through it before me. So by the time I got to the process, my parents were like, okay, this is what we have to do. What do you want to do? Blah, blah, blah. And that was it. But, in many cases, if you want to find out information, you can find so many contact information, phone numbers on all the college websites. If you know someone who went to a school that you're interested in, give them a call, reach out to them. Now Facebook, social media, Twitter, anything, you can find people. You can ask people that you know who went to those schools. Did you like it? What was the thing that you liked most? What did you like least? You know, the worst thing that people can say to you is no. Or maybe you can't get into contact with someone. But if you want to go to a school and you want to sit in on a class, call the admissions office. Maybe they don't do them. At John Jay, unfortunately, we don't have sit-ins in any of the classes, but we definitely encourage you to meet with professors. We encourage you to meet with program directors about the classes and the programs. So just ask questions. Do not be afraid to ask questions. Best advice.
At William Patterson University, we have a regular application, and we're also a member of the Common Application as well. My best piece of advice goes to the students in the room. Please take an active role in your college search process. It is karma that put me on this side of the desk. I was the person that did nothing when looking for colleges. I used to sit in presentations and fill out the little inquiry cards with my friends' information instead of my information. I didn't take things seriously. While I ended up with a good college choice where I went to school, I could have easily ended up with not a good college choice because I did not take an active role and I did not take this process seriously. So, while your parents are great resources, or your guidance counselors, or anybody that's helping you, please take this as a serious decision in life.
Delaware is exclusively on the Common Application, so that's the only way to apply to us. And my advice is to have a family conversation in regard to the cost. And each institution in this country has the net price calculator that fits their own institutional models. So to use that to start to have that family conversation as early on in the process.
Binghamton University is also on the Common App, as well as the SUNY app. Most of our students do apply through the Common App. A bit of advice, it's hard now at the end of the line because everything sounds great. Seriously, spend a moment, take more than a moment on understanding that college is not sort of just a check mark that you have to get through and a name that you have to put on your resume to get to wherever you want to go next. Because frankly, the question was asked before, if you don't know where you're going, many students don't really even know when they're in college where they're going next. So making sure you know yourself. Remember I said I flipped a coin 9 times? That means I didn't know myself. I was waiting for the coin to tell me. Spend time now understanding college is at least a 4-year process, right? So spend a lot of time now that you'll know that that 4 years was a good decision, right? So knowing yourself, knowing what the schools are and how you think you'll do at that school, because at the end, if you didn't do well at a school that had good stats or whatever that school had, it didn't really matter, right? So there's a lot of time that you can do now, and then the last bit about that is try to enjoy it. It's not a homework assignment, but it should be something you're doing, every night, going on college YouTube videos for that school, interacting with a friend there. These are